want to get organized and a planner has never really worked for you, then you are in the right place. Growing up, I had planners. I tried to work with planners. I would start 1 week, maybe even go 2 weeks, and then I'd find myself not seeing the value. I think that's an issue that many people run into. So if you've run into that, then you're not by yourself. I think many of us do that same thing. And I think there's one real reason why. Most of us were not taught the fundamentals of time management. We were not taught the fundamentals of prioritization. We were not even taught the fundamentals of goal setting. All those fundamentals are governed by how we see our time. And if we were never taught how to assess the use of our time, then those things would have evaded us when we tried to implement them into our lives. I want to tell you about the R3 planner. Refresh, refocus, rebuild. Refresh the vision, refocus your goals, and rebuild a plan. This is a monthly, weekly, and daily cycle, and it is a framework to help you implement those fundamentals that most of us miss into your life on a daily basis. So, now let me tell you why this is so near and dear to my heart. Just about 7 or 8 years ago, I started having a lot of anxiety that led me into a depression. I had a hard time maintaining at work, keeping jobs because of the anxiety, and really a hard time just doing anything at home. I just wanted to lay down, and when I was laying down, I was in despair. And out of that place, the Lord gave me a prophetic word, number one, to help invigorate me for the rest of my life. But number two, He gave me this framework. And by following it, I began to work my way out of this depression. And one of the things that I noticed when I was putting this into place, what God had given me, was that it was necessary for me to repeat this process over and over and over again. Now, anybody who has dealt with depression understands that we can't be governed by how we feel. If we are, then we'll never move forward. Well, in life, even if you're not depressed, the point is we have to do certain things again and again to get results. This framework that's presented through the planner and also through the book Refresh, Refocus, Rebuild helps individuals put these actions into place every day in spite of how they may feel. That's one of the keys, the golden rules of producing results in anything in our lives, in any area of our lives. So again, this planner assumes that everybody's starting from square one, because honestly, even the best time manager, if they don't put the principles into action for a day, will be inefficient for that day. So it assumes that we're all starting from square one. We need the fundamentals, and it helps individuals establish priorities, practice time management, and execute goals. In essence, it helps every individual be productive. So now I just want to talk a little bit about the organization of the planner. There are 6 components plus a 7th component, which are additional resources that you can find. Now, the first component is the vision statement. There's a page for a vision statement. This is a 6-month planner. So every month it starts off with the vision statement. And one of the things that I've learned to practice is writing the vision over and over and over again. And one invigorating thing for me to do has been to write my vision down every month exactly how I feel it at that time. Now, you can reference your vision statements from before, and that's fine, and just you're reiterating by writing it down, or you can write down exactly what you feel. And one of the things that I found is that each time it has built clarity for how I feel about my vision by challenging myself to recall and to write exactly how I feel about the vision in that moment. Also, there is the monthly calendar. That's what most planners have. Finally, there is a self-assessment matrix. So this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where I started in this whole framework and process. So as you'll see, the self-assessment matrix is broken down into 9 components. I suggest individuals work from the bottom row up. Notice that the bottom row has a place for your budget, place for your net worth, and then your actions. And you work from left to right. What I suggest with the budget section is that you simply write down the sum of your fixed expenses and the sum of your variable expenses, monthly income, just to kind of give you an idea. Now, I will say this, I like to also write in specifically how much I'm paying out in debt. So my liabilities, my financial liabilities, I like to write that in. So that's kind of a category under fixed expenses. So you can get as detailed as you want. I suggest, if you don't already, you have a separate binder or folder where you look at your finances on a monthly and weekly basis. But this is kind of a snapshot for you. If you're not familiar with net worth, that deals with your liabilities and your assets, it's really nice to see those right next to each other so you can kind of understand where you are as a whole in terms of your debt. This is important in terms of if something should happen to you, how much debt you might leave your family in, because your estate oftentimes will be used to pay off whatever debt you have. And also, this is great as you are paying off your debt. It's nice to see your net worth increase as your liabilities go down. Also, it's nice to see you add more assets. To the right, you'll notice an action section. This is where you, on a monthly basis, write out the actions you want to take that deal with your budget and your net worth. So your strategic financial actions. So now we move up to our middle row. Notice we start off with the objectives. So objectives are different than your vision statement. Your vision statement is how you see yourself in the world, making an impact, what you want to do ultimately, what drives you, what you believe you're called to do. The objectives are your main focus at the moment in time that aligns with the vision. So I suggest that you don't have any more than a couple objectives at a time. One would be optimum because it allows you to focus on that one. To the right of it, you have your goals section. So goals should align with those objectives. So let's say you had an objective of being a motivational speaker, and you might have several goals that help you to accomplish that. Maybe you take a class as a short-term goal and complete that course in order to improve your skills. Then maybe over the long term, you compete in various competitions in order to improve yourself and gain exposure and experience. To the right of that, you notice there's an action section. That section is where your goals are broken down into steps. Oftentimes, individuals don't start on a goal because it seems overwhelming. Many times they don't know where to start because they haven't broken down their goals into steps. An example of that is a person wanting to go back to school who doesn't go back to school because they don't know what they want to major in. Year in and year out, they have this inclination to go to school, but yet they still don't, even though they desire to. It's not until they sit down, they do the research, which is a step, and they figure out what it is they're interested in, that then they can reach out to the admissions or a certain department and get the ball rolling. So oftentimes it's the simple things that really hinder us. Finally, we move up to our top row, needs. So basically, in the book Refresh, Refocus, Rebuild, we build this section into 7 different categories: physical, mental, spiritual, financial, familial, social, and professional. And what I recommend is individuals try to list at least one per category, but 2 to 3 needs they have that they want to implement. Because oftentimes our needs are going unmet. right? If we're not intentional. So, for instance, let's consider the physical category. Maybe to help meet your physical needs, you need to exercise. So you would put exercise, and if you have a specific exercise you know that you want to do, you put that there. Maybe you know you need to eat better, so maybe you put diet, or counting calories, or losing 5 pounds, or getting more sleep, whatever it is. Spiritual, maybe you need to pray more, so maybe you would put a pray in the mornings or pray for 30 minutes a day, whatever the case. Social, maybe there's something that you know you need to do more. You need to call somebody more, or you do need to go to the men's meeting at your church, or whatever it may be. And what you're going to see is that this is going to create a sense of balance for your life. So, all right, let's look in the middle column. Have something called cash flow. Again, I go into more detail with this in the book, but cash flow is basically your monitoring of your income and your expenses. So it's a spinoff of your budget, except it's a little bit more in depth because, as we all know, there's generally always an unexpected expense every month. And so it's important to stay on top of where you are at every given point during the month and what you will do in response to an unexpected expense, or an expected expense that is not within the budget. And what this will do is keep you from getting into too much debt by having to get a last minute loan or something that's gonna cost you a lot of money over the course of a couple years. And what you'll find is the more you stay on top of your budget and you use this concept of cash flow, it will allow you to continue to progress on your goals, because ultimately time is money. Money takes time for most people, and when we put ourselves into debt and we fall behind, there are financial expenditures that we need to be able to take that we can't, for our goals, because we're behind in our finances. So doing these things ultimately helps you to continuously make progress on your goals. So finally, the actions to the right of your cash flow are the needs that you want to implement on a weekly basis, and the steps you need to take to ensure that you have the finances in place to cover all of your expenses. So again, doing this is a monthly and weekly occurrence. Now that we've covered the self-assessment matrix, I want to talk about the action organizer. This is where you'll take all the actions from your matrix, the right side of your matrix, that third column of your matrix where we had the action sections for each of the 3 rows, and you'll transfer them to this organizer. And if you'll notice, the organizer has 3 sections: long-term goals and obligations, short-term goals, and ancillary goals and tasks. Just to summarize it, long-term goals and obligations are very similar to each other in how they relate to you using your time. Both of them tend to require specific allotments of time on a weekly basis. I'm going to use an example. A student entering college, wanting to finish in 4 years, they'll get their best results if they realize they're in a long-term goal, which requires a set amount of hours a week to study. I think this is what a lot of students don't understand. I didn't understand it going to college. It wasn't until late college and really probably years into my career, matter of fact, when I was writing this book, that I really began to understand how long-term goals should be approached. And actually, it was when I was getting my master's degree, I realized that I needed to set a certain amount of time. I had to figure it out. And once I set that, I pretty much was able to produce the results I wanted on a weekly basis from week to week. And that's really how long-term goals and obligations work. You have to have that time set aside for those. So when we talk about priorities, those are your most important priorities in terms of moving forward with the major things. That brings us to our short-term goals. Short-term goals have a different time requirement than long-term goals. Oftentimes, when we set short-term goals, they displace other things that we may enjoy doing, such as our routine activities. We may enjoy watching television at a certain time every week, or whatever that activity may be. When short-term goals come into play, they're short-term for a reason. They require a concerted effort for a short period of time, and so we make that sacrifice. And I think when we understand this, we're better equipped to accomplish short-term goals, but we can't approach a short-term goal like it's not urgent. It must be urgent if it's going to truly be a short-term goal, and we must sacrifice the time and, to the best of our ability, not sacrificing our long-term goals and our obligations, but possibly modifying those needs that we've tried to put into place, as well as some of our routine weekly activities that are not necessarily important. They are important in terms of balance, but missing them for a couple weeks won't harm us. Then finally, we have ancillary goals and tasks. These are the least immediate of all of our actions. Ancillary goals are those support goals. They are important to do because they help us discover more about ourselves, discover what we're interested in. For instance, we might want to pick up a book and read a book every 6 weeks. That would be an ancillary goal. It's not a short-term goal because it doesn't have time demand. It's not a long-term goal because it does not require a set time allotment, and it's not for a real extended period of time. It's just something that we would do because we enjoy doing it, or we want to learn a new skill. We want to add to ourselves. Those are your ancillary goals. You fit those in where they're convenient. And your tasks are simply things that come up, things our friends may ask us to do that hopefully are not too inconvenient for us. That birthday party you need to go to, the gift you need to pick up, the idea that comes to your mind to call and help a friend with something. So again, on our priority list, these are at the bottom. At the same time, because they don't have the same time demand, we fit these in where it's convenient so that we still get them done, because they do add value to our lives and the lives of those that they are associated with. After you complete your action organizer, now you're ready to start the weekly planning cycle. In the book Refresh, Refocus, Rebuild, I talk about how the first thing any of us should do is make a canvas for our week. And that canvas should include our routine weekly activities. And this is where you should add your leisure in. If you enjoy watching a television show at a certain time, you put that on your canvas, your weekly schedule. If there's something you know you need to do every week, say it's wash clothes every Friday, go ahead and put that on your schedule. And of course, you would put your job and the hours that you work your job on your weekly schedule, because that's routine. And what this does is it creates a structure for you to see what I call in the book available time. So after you created this canvas, this structure, you can quickly approximate the amount of time you have by looking at it. You know, oftentimes I believe that we feel like we don't have enough time in the day and we don't have enough time in the week. But oftentimes it's because we have not really assessed how much available time we have, and the time we truly have is used for other things. And if we're feeling like we don't have enough time, but yet we do have a lot of quote unquote available time, then that means we're wasting time. So once you create this canvas, you can look at your action organizer, and on your action organizer, you need to go ahead and set a time allotment for the week, starting from left to right. So allot time for your obligations and long-term goals, then for your short-term goals, and then for task and ancillary goals. You don't need to put a time because you're going to fit those in as you'll see shortly, into your daily agenda kind of as you go. But definitely for your obligations and long-term goals and your short-term goals, you want a lot of time. And that time needs to fall into whatever time you had determined was your available time. And if it doesn't, what you probably need to do is cut out a short-term goal or lessen the time you are allotting for a short-term goal. Even reevaluate your obligations and long-term goals. So once you have tallied your time for your actions and have made sure that they fit into what you have determined as your available time, then you can start placing those items onto your weekly schedule. And you need to do this based on what you know about yourself. If you're a morning person, put your most tedious items in the morning so that you know you'll be efficient with those things. You want to make your life as routine as possible. To some, that might sound boring, but it's gonna make your life more balanced and ultimately, because of that, more productive and ultimately more fulfilling. Finally, you'll use your completed weekly schedule to complete each daily agenda. So creating a daily agenda is something so many of us have not understood the importance of. Hypothetically, we understand that it's important, but in terms of practicing it, I don't think we do. I can remember back in college, staying in my apartment with a few roommates. I remember I had this one roommate. He would get up every morning, go in the bathroom, do his business, and he was staying there for 30 minutes. And I used to ask him, what took him so long? I know, maybe that was personal. But he told me one day, he said when he's doing his business, he's also thinking about his day. And to me, that was foreign at the time because I just woke up every day. I mean, I knew I had class, but outside of class or any other activity, obligation that I had to do, I didn't think any more about my day. And it wasn't until years and years later when God gave me this framework that I even began to see the importance of waking up and being intentional in terms of my activities of the day. And one of the things that I believe led me into my depression was I got so focused on one thing. I had tunnel vision about this one particular idea, and because I had never really planned out my day, I would put all of my mind, all of my energy into this one thing for hours and hours, morning, noon, and night, over and over again until I was burned out and I didn't even realize that I was burned out. But the daily agenda is a tool that the most successful individuals, as simple as it is, have used to fidelity. I'll say since the beginning of time. We cannot negate this. But now here's one other thing to consider. When most folks use a planner, I would think that when they open up that planner, they automatically just start writing out what they're gonna do that day. I would think they do not go through the in-depth process that we just went through. And that's the significance of the Refresh, Refocus, Rebuild framework. It incorporates prioritization. It incorporates goal setting. It incorporates identifying time wasters through truly seeing where your available time is. It helps individuals be strategic without having to figure this out yourself. So many times we all have tried to do things, tried to use planners, tried to listen to somebody telling us exactly what to do, and it hasn't worked because we did not have the fundamentals. Well, with this planner, you're not being told what to do. You're being guided to do what's needed in order to produce results in your life. And I take no glory for it because the Lord gave it to me. So finally, you use this weekly schedule to transfer what you have listed for each day to the respective daily agenda. For instance, for Monday on your weekly schedule, you would transfer that the night before Monday or Monday morning when you wake up, you transfer that there. And that would be your guide, your structure for Monday. And if you notice, over to the right is our task list. So you could incorporate those tasks from your action organizer as convenient, as well as those items that might come to your mind that day, because we all know there's always something that will come up, some idea, some thought, something we didn't think about the day before, something that came up that we have to incorporate into the schedule. That note section at the bottom is just so you can deflect ideas and thoughts that are not immediate to that particular day. Oftentimes we can get absorbed into thoughts that really have no value for that moment in time. And it's important that we keep them for our conscience sake. So by putting them down in the note section, you can know they're there for safekeeping, but not give it much thought. And then the next day or the next day you return to it, and maybe it goes on your task list, or maybe you develop the thought a little bit more and some time you set aside. But that's how your daily agenda works. And that ultimately completes the framework of the planner. Now, one important aspect of planning is being able to assess. So I encourage you from week to week to look at your weekly schedule, see what worked, make modifications. From month to month, look at your matrix, see how your goals are evolving. Ask yourself what's helping you make the most progress, or why you're not making progress. Maybe you should set another goal. Maybe you have too many goals. Thank you for your purchase of the planner. I hope it blesses you. I believe it will if you use it. Until next time, y'all take care. Peace, love.